On April 20th, 2007, a search and rescue helicopter was flying over the Coral Sea off the northeastern coast of Australia, near the Great Barrier Reef, when the crew spotted a white catamaran drifting below them. The boat was moving slowly with the current, her sails partially deployed but torn, her course erratic and unguided. No one was visible on deck. The helicopter circled. No one appeared. The crew radioed the Queensland Emergency Management Office and continued watching as the catamaran, a 9.8-meter vessel called the Kaz II, drifted silently through one of the most beautiful stretches of ocean on Earth, with absolutely no one aboard. When authorities reached the Kaz II and boarded her, they found a scene that one rescue official described simply as eerie. The engine was still running. A laptop computer sat on the cabin table, powered on. The GPS system was operational. The radio was functional. The emergency position indicating beacon was stowed and had never been activated. Food and cutlery were set out on the table, a meal either being prepared or about to be eaten. Life jackets were stored in their lockers, all of them still there. The small inflatable dinghy was still hoisted on the stern. The anchor was up. Everything on the Kaz II was in working order. Everything was exactly where it should have been, except the three men who were supposed to be sailing her. Derek Batten, Peter Tunstead, and James Tunstead had vanished. Derek Batten was 56 years old, a retired electrical engineer from Perth, Western Australia. He had bought the Kaz II in 2006 for roughly $80,000 and had taken sailing courses, coastal navigation classes, radio certification, and first aid training in preparation for what he planned to be the trip of a lifetime. He intended to sail the Kaz II up Australia's northeastern coast, around the top of the continent, and back to Perth, an 8-week voyage through some of the most spectacular coastline in the world. Peter Tunstead was 69, Batten's brother-in-law, a retired man who had sailed small boats since he was 18 and had volunteered with the Sea Rescue Service. He was enthusiastic and experienced with small vessels, but had never sailed on a catamaran of this size. His son, James Tunstead, was 63, similarly experienced with small craft, but new to longer voyages. The three men were described by people who knew them as typical Aussie blokes, easygoing, competent, excited about the trip. They were not reckless. They were not inexperienced. They were also not professionals. There was one detail about Peter Tunstead that would become critically important. He could not swim. On Sunday, April 15, 2007, at 10:05 in the morning, the Kaz II departed from Airlie Beach in Queensland, heading north for Townsville, roughly 168 miles up the coast. It was the first leg of their 8-week journey. The weather was fair, and the sea conditions were described as moderate. The men were in good spirits, and we know this because they filmed themselves. A video camera found aboard the Kaz II after the disappearance contained footage shot on the morning of April 15th. The footage is the last record of the three men. It shows the Kaz II underway, the water visible behind the stern, the sky overcast, but not threatening. James Tunstead is fishing from the back of the boat, holding a rod and looking relaxed. Derek Batten is at the helm, visible in the background. Peter Tunstead, the non-swimmer, is sitting at the back of the boat near the fishing lines, his legs stretched out, and his posture casual. The safety rail behind him, the one piece of equipment that would prevent a person from sliding off the stern into the water, is folded down. He is not wearing a life jacket. None of them are wearing life jackets. In the footage, the men are laughing and talking. James and Derek are heard mocking Peter good-naturedly about his fishing technique or his reluctance to get closer to the water. At one point, someone remarks on threatening skies ahead, a passing comment about weather that might be coming. The mood is relaxed and domestic. Three men on a holiday, doing what men on holidays do. Nothing in the footage suggests that anything is wrong or that anyone is afraid. The footage was later reviewed, frame by frame, by investigators looking for any detail that might explain what happened next. They found nothing. The video shows 3 men alive and happy on a functioning boat in moderate conditions. There is no storm. There is no emergency. There is no moment where the situation changes. The video simply ends, and when the story resumes, the men are gone. The previous owner of the Kaz II, a man named Graham Douglas, had met the 3 men the night before they set sail. He had helped them plan part of their route, and later told investigators that the men seemed well prepared and excited. Douglas also noted something that puzzled him when the investigation began. The GPS data recovered from the Kaz II showed that the men had deviated from the route that had been programmed into the system. They had gone off course. Why they changed their planned route is unknown. On Monday, April 16th, the day after departure, a commercial fisherman named Gavin Howland was working a reef off the coastal town of Bowen when he and his crew spotted a white catamaran with a torn sail drifting sideways between the reef eaves through a narrow passage at roughly 3 knots. It was moving with the current in a north-northeast direction. Howland brought his fishing vessel, the Gillian, within 50 meters of the catamaran. He could not see anyone on board. Howland found it strange that a sailboat was in an area known for shallow water and rocks, an area that no competent sailor would enter voluntarily. A catamaran with a torn sail, drifting sideways through a narrow reef passage at 3 knots, was clearly in trouble. Any experienced mariner would recognize it instantly. The boat was not under control. The sail damage meant something had gone wrong. The absence of any crew on deck was, at minimum, unusual. But Howland did not attempt to contact the boat. He did not radio the authorities. He did not alter his course to investigate further. He later told the coronial inquest, with remarkable bluntness, that it did not occur to him that the crew might be in distress, and that he had a personal rule that no one goes near another vessel. The inquest noted his testimony without comment, but the implication was devastating. If Howland had radioed the Coast Guard on April 16th, the search for the 3 men would have begun 3 days earlier. Whether 3 days would have made any difference is impossible to know. Peter Tunstead could not swim. The water was deep. The currents were strong. But 3 days is 3 days, and the families of the missing men would carry the weight of that knowledge for the rest of their lives. 2 more days passed. On Wednesday, April 18th, the Coast Guard helicopter spotted the Kaz II, drifting off the coast of Townsville, 88 nautical miles offshore. The boarding followed on April 20th. 5 days had passed since the men left Airlie Beach. Between Howland's sighting on the 16th and the helicopter sighting on the 18th, the Kaz II had drifted roughly 130 miles with no one at the helm, carried by the currents of the Coral Sea along the outer edge of the Great Barrier Reef. The search for the 3 men was immediate and extensive. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority coordinated a massive operation involving Coast Guard vessels, helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, and volunteer boats. They searched over 150 square miles of the Coral Sea around the Kaz II's calculated drift path. Divers examined reefs and underwater formations along the route. Coastal patrols scanned the beaches and rocky shores of the Whitsunday Islands and the outer reef. They searched for 5 days. They found nothing. No bodies. No life jackets in the water. No debris, no clothing, no sign that anyone had gone overboard. The Coral Sea, warm and deep and teeming with marine life, had absorbed 3 men without leaving a trace. Sharks are common in these waters. So are strong currents that can carry a body miles from where it entered the water within hours. The search teams knew, though none of them said it publicly at the time, that 5 days in the Coral Sea without a life jacket meant that recovery was unlikely. They were no longer searching for survivors. They were searching for evidence. And the ocean gave them none. The families of the 3 men flew from Perth to Townsville. Frances Tunstead, Peter's widow, arrived expecting answers. There were none to give her. Her husband, her brother-in-law, and her son had sailed out of Airlie Beach on a Sunday morning, and by Monday they were gone, and no one could tell her why. Sergeant Paul Malloy, one of 3 forensic police officers who examined the Kaz II after she was towed back to shore, spent several hours combing the vessel for evidence. He found no signs of a struggle, no blood, no damage consistent with violence, no indication that anyone other than the 3-man crew had been aboard. We came to the conclusion that the boat itself was not a crime scene, he told the inquest. But there were details that didn't fit any simple explanation. The fishing lure was found tangled in the port side rudder. One of the men had been fishing from the stern, and the line had caught in the rudder mechanism. This suggested that at some point, someone would have needed to go over the side or lean far over the stern to free the tangled line. A white rope that was normally stored in a locker on the foredeck had been hauled in and bundled up on the deck, possibly laid out to dry. This suggested the men had been handling lines and ropes in the period before they vanished. Foredeck activity would have been routine until it mattered. James Tunstead's t-shirt and glasses were found placed neatly on the back seat of the boat, as if he had taken them off deliberately before doing something that required him to be bare-chested and unencumbered. Something like going into the water. The sail was torn. A sail does not tear itself under normal conditions. Something had happened. A sudden gust, a change in wind direction, or a moment of inattention that had damaged the sail and may have created chaos on deck. And the fenders were out. Fenders are the padded bumpers that boats deploy when they are docking alongside a wharf or alongside another vessel. The Kaz II's fenders were hanging over her side when she was found. Hope Hyming, Derek Batten's niece, found this deeply suspicious. The fenders were out on their yacht, she told the press, and the only reason you ever put them out is when another boat comes alongside, or if you come to rest against a wharf. To Hyming, this suggested that another vessel had come alongside the Kaz II, and that the 3 men had some connection to that unknown vessel. Police dismissed this theory. They pointed out that inexperienced sailors commonly leave fenders out at all times, and that video evidence from the marina showed the fenders had been deployed when the Kaz II left Airlie Beach. The fenders proved nothing. The coronial inquest was held in 2008. State Coroner Michael Barnes heard testimony from police, forensic experts, the previous owner, the fisherman who had seen the drifting yacht, and the families of the missing men. Barnes examined the video footage, the GPS data, the physical evidence aboard the boat, and the weather conditions on the day the men disappeared. His conclusion was careful and honest. He stated that he could not be definitive about the circumstances under which the deaths occurred. But based on the evidence, he proposed the following scenario. On Sunday, April 15th, sometime after the video footage was recorded, conditions on the water changed. The skies that the men had described as threatening delivered rougher weather than expected. The fishing lure became tangled in the port rudder. One of the men, most likely James Tunstead, who had been fishing and who had removed his shirt and glasses, went over the side or leaned far over the stern to free the line. He fell in. The other 2 men attempted to rescue him. Peter Tunstead, the 69-year-old non-swimmer who had been sitting at the back of the boat with the safety rail down and no life jacket, went in after his son, or he fell in during the attempt to help. Derek Batten, the skipper, the most capable sailor aboard, went in after both of them. None of them could get back to the boat. The Kaz II, with her engine still running, motored away from the men in the water. Without anyone at the helm, even a slow-moving catamaran will outpace a swimmer in seconds. A catamaran under engine power moves at roughly 4 to 5 knots. A strong swimmer in calm water can manage about 2 knots for short bursts. Within 60 seconds, the Kaz II would have been 30 meters away. Within 5 minutes, 250 meters. Within 10 minutes, she would have been a white dot on the surface of the Coral Sea, growing smaller, carrying their radios, their emergency beacon, their life jackets, their drinking water, and every tool that could have saved their lives, further and further away from 3 men treading water in the open ocean. The men would have watched their boat, with all its radios and safety equipment and life jackets, sail away from them into the Coral Sea. They would have shouted. They would have tried to swim after it. The gap would have widened. The boat would have become smaller. And then it would have disappeared entirely, leaving 3 men alone in the water, miles from shore, with no flotation, no way to call for help, and an ocean underneath them that was 2,000 meters deep. Peter Tunstead could not swim. And then the current and the waves and the distance and the exhaustion did what the ocean always does to men in the water without flotation. It does not take long. Depending on conditions, an unassisted person in tropical water can survive for 1 to 3 hours before exhaustion makes it impossible to keep their head above the surface. Without a life jacket, there is no resting. Every second in the water requires effort. When the effort stops, the drowning begins. This is the most likely explanation. It is also the most agonizing one, because it means that 3 men died not because of a storm, not because of a rogue wave, not because of pirates or engine failure or structural collapse, but because of a tangled fishing line and a decision to help. 1 man fell in. The others followed. The boat kept going. Peter Tunstead's widow, Frances, asked the police why they had not dusted the boat for fingerprints. The question contained a grief that no investigation could address. She wanted there to be evidence of something else, another explanation, another person, another reason that her husband was gone. The police had nothing to give her. There were no fingerprints to find because no one else had been aboard. The bodies of Derek Batten, Peter Tunstead, and James Tunstead were never recovered. The Coral Sea is deep, warm, and full of marine life. Bodies do not last long in tropical water. The ocean did not return them. The Kaz II herself was towed back to shore, examined, cleaned, and eventually sold. She was not a crime scene. She was not cursed. She was a well-maintained catamaran that had done exactly what she was designed to do. She kept sailing. The men who were supposed to be sailing her simply were not aboard anymore. And the boat, running on autopilot with her engine humming and her laptop glowing and her table set for a meal that no one would eat, continued on without them, as if they had never been there at all. The Kaz II is the Mary Celeste of the 21st century. The parallels are striking. A vessel found in good condition, fully operational, with no sign of distress. Personal belongings left behind. A meal prepared and uneaten. No crew, no bodies. No explanation that satisfies everyone. But where the Mary Celeste left a mystery that has endured for 150 years, the Kaz II left something worse. An answer. The Mary Celeste vanished in 1872, in an era before GPS, before radio, before satellite tracking, before video cameras. The mystery of the Mary Celeste persists because there was so little evidence to work with. The Kaz II vanished in 2007, in an era where everything is tracked, recorded, and documented. The GPS logged every position. The video camera recorded the men alive and laughing hours before they disappeared. The forensic examination was thorough and professional. The coronial inquest heard from every relevant witness, and the answer, when it came, was not a mystery at all. A fishing line tangled in a rudder, a man without a life jacket, a boat that motored away from the men who needed it most. No supernatural force, no unexplained phenomenon, no conspiracy. Just the ordinary, terrible mechanics of 3 men in the water and a boat that would not stop. The cruelest part of the Kaz II story is not the disappearance. It is the normalcy. The men were not in a storm. They were not far from shore. They were not in danger. They were on a calm sea, on a beautiful day, on a boat that was working perfectly, doing something as ordinary as freeing a tangled fishing line. And then one of them was in the water. And then 2 more were in the water. And then the boat was gone. The distance between a good day on the ocean and a fatal one is measured in seconds, and the Kaz II crossed that distance before anyone on board had time to understand what was happening. The engine was still running when they found her. The laptop was still open. The meal was still on the table. And 3 men were gone, taken not by a storm or a monster or a curse, but by a moment of bad luck, followed by a moment of loyalty, followed by the coral sea, which does not care about either. If you want to hear the stories of what else the sea has taken and never returned, subscribe. There is always another ship that never came home.